Plymouth is sitting at just 3 degrees Celsius this morning, whilst Aberdeen up in Scotland is enjoying a relatively mild 7 degrees. Yes, you heard that correctly. The southwest is currently colder than the northeast of Scotland. Is your area about to face yet another deluge after what has already been one of the wettest starts to a year on record? Right now, we have amber warnings covering Devon, Cornwall, and parts of West Wales affecting over 2 million people, with some areas already recording more rainfall in January alone than they saw in the entire first half of 2025. And here is what you need to know over the next 4 days, with specific timings for your location coming up in the next 30 seconds. Drop your location in the comments right now, and I'll give you a personalized forecast for tomorrow's video because the situation is evolving hour by hour. So let's get straight into it. London, you are looking at cloudy conditions throughout today with temperatures reaching 11 degrees, staying dry until Thursday evening when rain arrives around 7 o'clock. Manchester, outbreaks of rain through the morning, clearing by lunchtime, then dry through Wednesday before the next system arrives Thursday night. Birmingham, you are in that transitional zone, staying mostly dry today and tomorrow, temperatures around 9 to 10 degrees. Glasgow, actually quite pleasant for you today with some sunny spells reaching 8 degrees, though it turns wet again by Thursday. Cardiff, persistent rain today, easing this evening, then a brief respite Wednesday before heavy rain returns Thursday into Friday. Belfast, cloudy with occasional drizzle, temperatures around 6 degrees. Now, here's what makes this week particularly challenging. The Met Office model is currently showing the main low tracking across southern England Thursday night, which would bring the heaviest rainfall to the southeast and the Midlands. However, the European model suggests a track about 80 kilometres further north, which completely changes the picture for Yorkshire, Lancashire, and the northeast. This difference is crucial, and we should have much better clarity by tomorrow morning's model runs. For those of you in the southwest Devon, Cornwall, and West Somerset, we're looking at another 60 to 80 millimetres of rainfall through Thursday and Friday. Some exposed locations on Dartmoor and Bodmin Moor could see over 100 millimetres. The ground is absolutely saturated, river levels remain high, and flood warnings are in place. Exeter, Plymouth, Truro, Penzance, you are all facing significant rainfall. Moving up to Bristol and the Severn Valley, you are looking at 40 to 60 millimetres. Bath, Gloucester, Worcester, keep monitoring flood warnings closely. Across the Midlands, Nottingham, Leicester, Coventry, Northampton, you are in that zone of uncertainty. 30 to 50 millimetres is likely if the Met Office solution plays out, potentially 20 to 30 if the European model proves correct. The southeast Dover, Brighton, Southampton, Portsmouth, you will see rain Thursday night and Friday, perhaps 20 to 30 millimetres rather than heavier amounts further west. Cambridge and Oxford, you are right on that dividing line, with Oxford more likely to see heavier totals. Let me talk about the northwest because there's one detail here that concerns me most. Liverpool, Manchester, Preston, Blackpool, you've already had a difficult January with gale force winds. Thursday's system brings another round of strong winds, gusting to 80 kilometres per hour along the coast, possibly 90 in exposed locations. Combined with high spring tides Thursday evening, we could see coastal flooding issues. Blackpool Promenade and the Wirral Coast need to be particularly vigilant. Leeds, Sheffield, York, you are looking at a rather mixed bag through the week, staying largely dry today and Wednesday, which is good news. Then rain arrives Thursday, but the timing is still uncertain. Could be Thursday afternoon, could be Thursday evening. That's why you should check back tomorrow when we'll have that timing nailed down much more precisely. Moving up to the northeast, Newcastle, Sunderland, Middlesbrough, Durham, you looking at one of the drier weeks across England. Some light rain Thursday, perhaps 10 to 20 millimetres, but nothing like what the south and west are facing. Temperatures staying around 6 to 8 degrees, feeling rather cold in that easterly breeze. Now let's head over to Scotland. Edinburgh, your current sunny spells one to last, I'm afraid. Cloud increases through today, rain arrives Wednesday evening, then turning showery Thursday and Friday. But crucially, these are showers rather than persistent rain. Big difference in accumulation. You're looking at 20 to 30 millimetres total, manageable compared to the southwest. Glasgow, similar story, but you all see rain arriving slightly earlier, probably Wednesday afternoon. The west coast of Scotland, Oban, Fort William, Malaguari in a different pattern. The Atlantic systems are sweeping past to your south, so you are looking at a drier spell than recently. Some showers certainly, but nothing too concerning. Aberdeen and the northeast of Scotland, Dundee, Montrose, Fraserburgh, there is still uncertainty about whether you see rain Thursday or stay on the northern edge and remain largely dry. The Met Office model keeps you dry, the European model clips you with light rain. Inverness and the Highlands, you were well north of all this, looking at a fairly settled week actually. though temperatures remaining rather chilly at 3 to 5 degrees. Let me just clarify something about Wales because the situation there is particularly acute. Cardiff and the South Wales valleys, Merthyr, Pontypridd, Newport, UV already had flooding issues in January, and now we are looking at another major rainfall event Thursday into Friday. 50 to 70 millimetres is likely, possibly more over the higher ground. Swansea and West Wales, Carmarthen, Pembroke, similar story. The Brecon Beacons could see over 100 millimetres. This is serious rainfall on top of saturated ground. North Wales presents a slightly better picture. Bangor, Llandudno, Wrexham, you are looking at 30 to 40 millimetres. Still significant, but not quite the deluge the south is facing. Snowdonia will see heavy rainfall on the western slopes, but the valleys should be a bit more sheltered. Northern Ireland, Belfast, I mentioned earlier, you've got a cloudy, damp week ahead. Derry, you are looking at similar conditions. The North Coast, Portrush, Ballycastle staying breezy with occasional showers. Nothing too dramatic for you this week. Temperatures around 6 to 7 degrees. Feeling rather raw in the wind. Right then, let's talk about what happens after Friday because there's something rather unusual developing. There are early signs, and I stress these are early signs that need confirmation of high pressure trying to build from the south late in the weekend or early next week. Now, if this happens, we're looking at a potential shift to drier, more settled conditions. But here's where it gets interesting. This could be anticyclonic gloom rather than bright sunshine. Foggy, misty, grey conditions, but crucially dry. For areas dealing with flooding, dry weather would be very welcome regardless of whether we see sunshine. The models are currently showing different solutions for this. The Met Office model is more optimistic about the high pressure building strongly, whilst the European model suggests it might be weaker and further south, keeping unsettled conditions across Scotland and Northern Ireland. This difference matters enormously for your weekend plans and for flood recovery efforts. Tomorrow, as model runs, should clarify this considerably. The temperature story this week is actually fairly unremarkable. We're re-sitting in that mild Atlantic air mass with temperatures generally between 6 and 12 degrees across most areas. The north of Scotland staying coldest at 3 to 6 degrees. The south and southwest mildest at 10 to 12 degrees. Nothing extreme in either direction. What we are lacking is any cold air from the continent. The blocking high over Scandinavia that several of you have mentioned in comments isn't budging, which means we are stuck in this Atlantic-dominated pattern. Actually, let me mention something about that Scandinavian high because it's quite interesting meteorologically. It has a very strong, stubborn feature that has been sitting there for nearly 3 weeks now. The jet stream is basically being forced to split around it, with one branch going north across Iceland and another branch diving south across the UK and France. This southern branch is what is bringing all our wet weather. Until that Scandinavian high moves or weakens, we re-stuck in this pattern. The long-range models suggest it might start to weaken next week, but there's considerable uncertainty about that timeline. The Lake District, Keswick, Windermere, Ambleside, you're actually looking at a reasonable week. Yes, you'll see rain Thursday, but the totals aren't excessive, perhaps 30 to 40 millimetres. The Western Fells will see more, the Eastern Fells a bit less. Compared to what you saw in January, this is manageable. The Peak District, Buxton, Bakewell, Sheffield, Western Suburbs, similar story, 30 to 40 millimetres Thursday into Friday. The Pennines create an interesting situation. The Western Slopes, Lancashire side, will see heavier rainfall Thursday as that is the windward side. The Eastern Slopes, Yorkshire side, will be somewhat sheltered. Bradford and Halifax will see more rain than Huddersfield and Barnsley, even though they are only 20 kilometres apart. These local variations matter for flood risk. The Cotswolds, Cirencester, Cheltenham, Chipping Norton, you are looking at 40 to 50 millimetres, with the western edge seeing slightly more than the eastern edge. The Thames headwaters are already running high after January, so this additional rainfall will keep river levels elevated through the weekend. Let me address something several of you have mentioned in recent comments: the state of agricultural land. For farmers across the Midlands and South, this continued wet weather is really problematic. Free-draining chalk soils that should be workable are waterlogged. Clay soils in the Weald, across the Midlands, in the Cheshire Plain, these are going to remain unworkable for some time yet. We need that dry spell I mentioned might arrive next week, but even then, it'll take time for fields to dry out. The Fens, Peterborough, March, Wisbech, your drainage systems are coping, but only just. The pumping stations are working overtime. Fortunately, you're on the lighter side of Thursday S system. perhaps 20 to 30 millimetres, which your drainage can handle. East Anglia generally, Norwich, Ipswich, Cambridge, Colchester, you are looking at the driest week you've had in a while. Relatively speaking, yes, rain Thursday, but we are talking 20 to 30 millimetres, not the 60 to 80 millimetres falling further west. Make the most of the relatively drier conditions Wednesday, Kent, Canterbury, Maidstone, Ashford, you on the very edge of the heaviest rainfall. The Channel coast from Dover to Folkestone might stay mainly dry Thursday, whilst inland Kent sees light to moderate rain. Sussex, Hastings, Eastbourne, Worthing, Chichester, similar story. The South Downs will see more rain than the coastal strip. Brighton might see 30 millimetres, whilst the Downs behind you see 45 millimetres. Surrey and Berkshire, Guildford, Reading, Slough, Woking, Uri looking at 30 to 40 millimetres Thursday into Friday. The Thames through Reading and Maidenhead will remain high but manageable. Hampshire, Winchester, Basingstoke, Andover, Uri in that 30 to 40 millimetre zone as well. The New Forest will be particularly saturated. Dorset, Bournemouth, Poole, Dorchester, Weymouth, you looking at one of the drier corners of the southwest, relatively speaking. 30 to 40 millimetres is likely, whilst just 60 kilometres to the west in Devon, they seeing double that. Somerset, Taunton, Bridgewater, Yeovil, the levels are going to see more flooding this week. 40 to 60 millimetres on top of what you've already had means the rivers Parrett, Tone and Brew will be very high. Glastonbury and Street, the vulnerable areas keep monitoring Environment Agency warnings. Now do check back tomorrow because we'll have updated model guidance, much more precise rainfall totals, and crucially, better timing information for Thursday's main system. The difference between rain arriving at 2 o'clock versus 6 o'clock matters for commute planning, for flood preparations, for deciding whether to travel. If there is one thing to take away from this forecast, it's that Thursday into Friday is when we see the most significant rainfall across southern Britain, but the exact distribution is still being refined by the models. Scotland and Northern Ireland, you're looking at a less severe week. Northern England, you are somewhere in between. The weekend remains uncertain. There are tentative signs of improvement, but I can't promise you sunshine and blue skies yet. What I can say is that the relentless train of deep Atlantic lows should ease, at least temporarily. Whether we get high pressure or just a less active pattern, we'll know more in tomorrow's model runs. For Monday through Wednesday, it is too far out for specifics, but the general signal is for a shift towards something more settled. This doesn't mean an immediate end to wet weather. The ground is so saturated that even lighter rainfall could cause localized issues, but the pattern should become less aggressive. I've seen comments from several of you saying you're sick of the rain, and I completely understand that. It has been relentless, particularly across the West Country, Wales, and parts of Scotland. Unfortunately, this is the pattern we restuck in for now. The good news, if we can call it that, is that we are getting this wet weather in winter when evaporation is low and vegetation is dormant. If we saw this rainfall rate in summer, we'd have widespread flooding problems far worse than what we are experiencing now. For those of you dealing with flooding, and I know many of you are, please keep following Environment Agency guidance, keep checking flood warnings for your area, and stay safe. Don T attempt to drive through floodwater. 6 inches of moving water can knock you off your feet, and 2 feet can float a car. Right? I want to hear from you in the comments. What is the weather like where you are right now? Has January's rainfall caused problems in your area? And crucially, what is your location so I can give you a more detailed forecast in tomorrow's video? I do read the comments, and I'll be including personalized forecasts for the cities and towns you mention. Tomorrow's video will have the updated model guidance, much better timing for Thursday's system, and we'll look at that potential pattern change for early next week in more detail. I am particularly interested to see if the high pressure development comes off or whether we stay unsettled. The models have been hinting at this for a few days now, but they keep pushing it back. We'll see if tomorrow's runs are more confident. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow with the latest. Stay safe, stay dry if you can, and remember this weather pattern won't last forever, even though it might feel that way right now.